Welcome to the 58th edition of Botcasters, today with Hans Vandenberg. Hans, welcome.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me on your podcast. Great.
Yes, please introduce yourself.
All right, I'm Hans Vandenberg, living in Belgium, Dutch guy from origin. Professionally, worked abroad a lot with large multinationals. Started my own company in the Netherlands with my business partner. When I came in contact, listened to a lot of podcasts about AI. 5 years ago, it started, I think, in the car. I was inspired by what it could be for organizations and clients. I sold my stake in my company and am now running an AI agency in the Netherlands, in Breda, a family of agencies. And it's great to help organizations weed a little bit through the whole AI technology and what it can mean. Inspired by the technology, however, avoiding the traps and mistakes, of course. There. Because
you already touched. You already touched. Thanks. You already touched a few subjects. But the reason I invited you is because we had a talk, not knowing if we would do a podcast, and we came to the point where we agreed that, or had the same idea about how large companies should go about, or large and smaller companies, start using AI, generative AI, conversational AI. And how to strategize towards using it and implementing it in your organization. And this is one of the main things you occupy yourself with, helping companies strategize and start implementing. And especially the strategizing part is something I feel, but I think you feel too, that is sort of not covered a lot in all the posts on LinkedIn. You see all the articles, how to do things, but the whole part before it and the things that come from that are just not covered. So I thought it would be a good idea to discuss that and go all the way to the beginning. So, okay, now a company wants to do something. What are the steps they should take in order to prepare themselves to do it successfully, but also ethically and carefully and safe and all the words you could use for it. So if you could share your vision on that and guide us through the steps you help companies with in order to get to a proper AI strategy.
Great that you asked that. And that's also my biggest inspiration for going into AI, because the technology is, of course, very tempting to immediately dive into the details and start building and start playing and doing proof of concepts, which I call most of the time proof of impact, because it's very, very critical to see like where do you start and where do you want to gain the business impact. What I've seen over the last 1.5 years, of course, booming with ChatGPT, but that organizations don't have a proper detailed understanding of the domains within AI. Like machine vision, machine learning, generative AI, conversational AI, and of course AI with robotics. So,
and how it all connects.
Right, yeah, because multimodal. When you make a picture with ChatGPT within of your fridge, and it tells you what you can make, then it's of course machine vision and generative AI, and it's a couple of pieces together. A self-driving car, of course, is more than. It's not even generative AI as we speak. So I start most of the time, first step, just inspiring organizations with the domain so that they have at least very simple an idea of what it all is, because it's not only ChatGPT.
How do you do that? How do you, let's say you talk to a CEO of a company and you sit across his desk and he says, okay, we want to start with AI. It's like, it's one of those loose remarks that makes no sense, because you cannot just start with AI.
Right.
But I know these things are being said or in the boardroom. Like, so we need to do AI because our competitor is doing it as well. So how do you guide a board or a CEO or a CIO through the steps and get them back to the beginning? Because if they go too fast, they sort of make turmoil in the organization, and you don't want that. You want peace and a stable path.
Plotting the AI journey is, of course, very critical. So the steps, if there is board level approval, and here we have already the first stumble block potentially, but of course, which is in every project, don't get me wrong, but of course with AI it's as well, there needs to be some innovative people within the management team that drives this forward, and of course then there is budget, but that's of course a given. Nothing new. What I definitely create with them is an AI game plan, and I have a standard approach and a standard framework for that. So the approach is definitely on inspiration and discovery first, and then creating and designing a game plan as a second step. And with that, in a game plan creation, I take the either operating model, so how the organization works, or the journey of a customer journey, like what we have done with an organization that sells, that teaches classes, for example. Take the whole journey of somebody who is exploring on the web, who is then trying to decide what class to take, then is doing the class, is having questions while they do the class. Now, everybody knows the journey there, but then we really look at what is missing, what can be more efficient. In other words, what are the pains and the gains that you want to accomplish in the step? Now, everybody would think like, why would AI, what does AI play a role there? Well, I believe that taking the operating model and the customer journey, you can identify the pains and gains in general. And then, of course, with my agency, we then provide you the guidance of where can AI play a role potentially. But immediately thinking of what can AI do in the search phase, that's, I think, a big mistake and not to do.
Yeah. And if you say operating model, I presume you also mean the business model, how you make money and where you have the cost in your company.
The operating model, good question. But yeah, it's indeed, it's either the operating model and how an organization works. So for example, I worked with a lot of manufacturers. A manufacturer has an operating model of ideation, finding ideas, designing, development, launch, and phase out. That's in the steps, the operating model of a organization. In launch, there's of course a lot of stuff going on when you launch a product. In a journey, it's the same thing. Like with the example I just gave, somebody searches, somebody selects, somebody buys, somebody does the training, and somebody wants to choose another training. So it's really in a phased approach. The advantage there is that you already start niching in some area of the process, how a company works. So the operating model of the journey, where you think like, oh, here are definitely, we can definitely solve pains, or we can gather gains. Now, on top, it's very easy, I think, of course, with working with them and saying, oh, it's very difficult for them to find the right course. Okay. Then I think, okay, that's but definitely in a hook where conversational AI, or where AI can play a role. However, we also plot this with the McKinsey Horizon model, where you have Horizon 1 initiatives that come out within the operating model somewhere, and in these 5 phases. And that's some homework that people need to do. If they don't have it, we can create it. But then where are Horizon 1 initiatives? Meaning, most of the time, current business model, making it what it can be more efficient, I always say, or what can be more effective. US people say it's cheaper, faster, quicker, or that's that kind of stuff. Horizon 2 is more in the area of linked with your business, and that you start a new initiative, meaning you are a distributor, you do B2B.
Disruptive stuff.
Right, yeah, more disruptive, but you go B2C. Yeah,
Can I ask one
far
sorry.
off. Yeah, sorry.
Can I ask one question? If we go back to Horizon 1, it's actually a good thing you use a structured model for this. Are you familiar with the theory of constraint of Goldratt?
No.
I'm not going to do the whole theory, but you understand you have a chain is as strong as its weakest link, right? If you take a manufacturing process, what do you see a lot of companies do? They say, oh, we have this machine, we can replace it for a robot. It's twice as fast. Of course, it's more expensive. And they eliminate this one machine in the middle of the process, take out the machine, put in a robot. It's twice as fast. But then they're surprised that at the end of the production line, the product doesn't come out twice as fast or better or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
because they optimized, they created a local optimum,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's in the middle of the process. And you say Horizon One. What I see happening in a lot of companies, they focus on this one thing within their company, not the whole process. So not the whole journey from start to finish. And they say, oh, if we eliminate this task and use AI or automate it, even it's just it's even about regular automation, we improve by X. But then you look at the whole chain, and then you literally have achieved nothing other than spend money on something that doesn't make your product cheaper or faster, better, or whatever. Um, and I'm surprised that this happens. And also for AI, I get these questions like, no, but it's only useful if you look at the whole chain and not just this local thing.
Well, very interesting that you share that, and
It's for Horizon One, right?
yeah. Well, it's, I think, for all of them, because I have a couple of values with my agency, and one of them is small steps. So I don't believe in these big bangs, and
It's like the elephant, you eat in small
easier
pieces.
said than done, right? Because when you do a project, especially with AI, it takes some time. Eventually, it comes, and then people say, "Oh, was it that long?" And it's always, well, it's always, yeah, it's not good, right? It's always a disappointment.
You need to experiment a lot until you get to a certain
Right,
level, and
right,
that takes time and money and people, by the way.
right. Now, the approach I take to trying to find one, AI initiatives and then chunk them in small pieces. And what you're saying is true, avoiding to do something which eventually in the end doesn't benefit, right? The AI initiatives that we plot are, of course, focused in a certain area of the journey or in the operating model, right? What I just explained. Now, then we're going to look at with the model, which is the same, but that's why it's a framework. And it helps to then plot and say, okay, I, as a customer service manager, get a lot of questions and I can't answer them. Oh, why? Well, because there are too many and I need to search for the answer all the time. Okay, that's the root cause. If I want to answer them all, right, then it will cost me 5 hours. That's the fourth step. And I can share the canvas with the people to use it. And then the last step is, well, plot the nirvana. Well, if we would have somebody who could do this on steroids and answer these questions and has that knowledge, then we have that. So and I'm, of course, a data and AI agency, so I'm really structured entities and stuff. So I really plot this on a canvas like this, that they have to draw it out. Then we get 10 initiatives. And then coming back to your part, then we say, okay, well, we have a pretty good idea on what the impact is. It saves that much time. It will raise that much revenue, all that sort of stuff. So with the management teams, with the working team, which we create this AI game plan, we're then going to plot it. Now, how are we going to plot it? And there are a lot of models on doing that. And that's more focused on now, where can we play and how small do you want to get it? We plot it then on business impact, because we know, like, cheaper, faster, save time, or more revenue as a gain, pain or gain. And we plot it at complexity. And of course, that's where we help, because there are AI initiatives, right? So I can a little bit think, well, that's a lot of work, and that will take a lot of work. So that we plotted on an axis and saying, okay, this is far to the top, a lot of impact, but very complex. Okay, then you might not want to do that first. It's great that there's a lot of impact, it's very tempting, but then it takes half a year and it's a disappointment.
It's also high risk.
Exactly, because
failures happen as many or as often as successes.
So we plot that, and then we have a little bit of a feel just with 6 initiatives, like how does that feel? How does that see? And that is also indicating the complexity, and here it comes, is of course regarding the part where you are saying, of course, making it small, but is it linked with the chain? Well, we definitely have great discussions about the impact if we can then achieve it.
Right.
So if we have discussions about 6 initiatives and talk about that, we need to take care of this. And of course, it's always people, process, technology. and the whole bang. Yeah, it's a combination together. So we're not going to dive into that standard project approach, but then we have a good discussion on, okay, where could be related to your question, where could be, are we really going to get the benefits? If you're saying in your example on production, you only get the benefits there in the middle, say, yeah, the
It's
packaging
useless.
machine, right? The packaging machine cannot pick it up. It piles up there, and we need another center there. Well, then that will come out. Yeah.
See
So
the whole.
you plot that.
So yeah, that's interesting because the theory of constraint, which I mentioned, it's based that you do root cause analysis, as you said, and you don't stop. Usually, behind what you think is the root cause, there's actually something underneath or assumptions that are not correct.
Right.
And as soon as you find the actual root cause, you know that is the constraint of your process, not being
Yeah.
faster, cheaper, more efficient. And in my opinion, but I think that's sort of what you're saying, that if you have an AI initiative and you want to have impact, large impact, and usually the changes you have to make are not that big, is lifting that constraint by using AI, and then the next thing you know, the constraint will pop up somewhere else in the process because
Yeah.
you lifted it here, but then the increased volume will cause a problem somewhere else down the line.
But it's great and very learnful that you say that. But indeed, by plotting in a separate in this quadrant, meaning like I do this, this is the root cause, this is what it costs me or will benefit me, and what will be the ideal situation, especially when you take it in that order. And people come at the ideal situation, then we're of course going to brainstorm and say, "Oh, wouldn't it be nice if it would be this, this, this?" Then of course you have to go back and think, "Oh, yeah, the root cause might be still somewhere else, right?" Because of course, us as the agency are helping and really digging deeper in, well, only daring to ask, and with some people that are hired don't dare to ask that, saying, okay, but why? I don't understand. Why? I don't understand, right?
You're asking the
I
nasty
give people
questions.
daring to ask that. I always say, well, hey, I'm still learning every day. That's why I like it so much with talking to clients. And every time we hear something new, but dare to ask, like, why can't you do that? What's the reason for not having that information? Or why are you searching for so much information? So, and why does it take so long? And show me that kind of stuff. So I think that's also a technique to really find what you're also saying, the root cause, where it really resides, before we're going to say, "Hey, generative AI is going to solve this problem," right?
Yeah, because we're now in the phase that everybody thinks that since generative AI or LLMs or AI in general is a hammer, that every problem is a nail.
Yeah,
That's sort of what's happening right now, and it worries me because at the same time, I don't know if you see that in your consultancy practice, is that a company come in and say, "Oh, we want to downsize. We want to have less people working for us, and we understand there's a lot of tasks we could automate using AI or generative AI." And then I try to explain to them, it's like, yeah, but if you want to lay off people, you need these people for their knowledge. You cannot set up an AI system without the knowledge of the people to start with. And maybe eventually you can downsize, but in the beginning you can't. You really can. And so people have to understand, or CEOs or the boardroom has to understand that it takes first a lot of investment before you can reap down the line somewhere serious benefits. It takes
absolutely.
time and money first.
Oh, you're absolutely right, and often, luckily, and that's more fun. I have discussions with boards like, we want to continue to grow, but we don't want to grow the team of the service department. And then I think,
But
okay,
that's a good point.
and then
That's
we're adding companions, co-pilots, virtual assistants. But yeah, one important other value that we have, besides the small steps, is that I more honestly believe that it's more IA than AI, meaning intelligent augmentation, supporting humans. Because when you're setting up a conversational AI platform and you're not going to monitor it, and you don't know what they ask, and it's an answer, and here you have it, right? Some people, where we implement conversational AI, they get a new role. They have a huge amount of work in the beginning to get everything up and going and get it trained and all. And then the monitoring is still there, right? Because you cannot leave it like it is on autopilot when you're
it's a
asleep.
digital
Yes,
coworker. It's a
but
digital.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's why the name of Microsoft is pretty good, of course, that it's a co-pilot. That's more, I believe. Of course, we're running into this AI agent thing as we speak, as the big hype in 24.
Yeah, I have a
But
thought about that.
that's a little bit dangerous, I think. Yeah, I have a lot of examples in my inspiration session where it definitely completely goes wrong. With
Can I ask your vision about something that sort of bugs me, and I don't see any articles on that on LinkedIn, and maybe we should write one if we agree. Um, Here's the following. AWS, Azure, as in Microsoft and Google, they're all pushing, and some other companies, but these are the big ones. They're all pushing for cloud computing, right? Everybody needs to do cloud
right,
computing. It's cheaper, faster, more scalable, blah 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 blah. Not necessarily safer. But here's the thing: they're also pushing AI or the use of LLMs. And I see the following thing happening that all these companies are pushing for their AI solution, which means more cloud computing, more GPUs, and token cost. And we're not going to talk about the environment. That's a different story.
yeah,
Let's put that aside for a second.
yeah,
Now, here's the thing. You have your cloud computing there. So all your core applications run in the cloud over there. And then you're starting to replace people by AI, which is also by one of these big ones. And they come in cheap. And next thing you know, they say, "Oh, our costs have gone up. The GPUs are more expensive. The cloud computing is more expensive. The energy cost has gone up, etc. Security costs, blah 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 blah." And then they start to turn the notch of pricing. Now, I've always learned, I'm an economist by a study originally. I always learned that you need to have control over the operating cost in your business model. So you need to understand what are the cost drivers, and you need to be able to control that as much as possible.
right.
So there's staff for one thing. Of course, you have the automatic pay raises, etc., and the government stuff. You have machinery, and then you have outside costs. But if you start replacing people with outside cost, and you have your cloud computing, and AI is trained on your thing, on your business, your knowledge, and it's in every corner of your company, the cost of change are phenomenal,
Huge.
and actually virtually impossible because the people with the knowledge, you've laid them off, right? So aren't we heading, and my question is a bit suggestive, I realize that, but I'll put it differently, are we heading towards, if companies don't change their strategies on this, towards a full lock-in from the 3 or 4 big tech companies that get bigger and basically control, and I'm not into sort of theories, but control basically everything that happens in those companies through their AI and cloud computing. And does that make industries and countries vulnerable to lots of or terrorism attacks or cyber attacks, and basically they're out of business? Let's say if you're a stock market and you use AI and everything is in the cloud somewhere, and all of a sudden the internet is gone. I mean, there is no stock market. There's no liquidity. Banks are out of business. Nobody can touch their money. It would be a total crisis. So what I see happening is that a few big companies starting to control um, uh, more than maybe is wise in every corner of a lot of big companies. So big tech starts becoming a risk, a liability instead of an asset. That's my thought and my fear. And maybe I'm alone at this. I don't know. But how do you view that?
I started a company 25 years ago, which was an internet-based survey solution, which then was called still ASP. So I made the whole SaaS movement. Salesforce was luckily coming on board. So the whole, I lost a lot of deals because people didn't want to put their product information on our servers, right? Which is
Okay.
now in the cloud is very common. So related to your question, related if I understand it correctly, are these companies very powerful? In general, I believe they're already very powerful. The Googles, the
They
Azure,
are.
and Azure was a little bit behind. Amazon was into, of course, the front runner, but these three players, Amazon, Microsoft, and
Google.
Google, are enormously powerful. Taking AI, forgetting AI for a second, right? Of course, we have three, I think. So I'm concerned about that because we use infrastructure components and we wanted to train a model and there was no GPU because it was all sold, right? So that's already happening right now, right? So that's a
So
shortage.
they control innovation,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because
yeah. So that's I think we need to take into account. Besides what I agree to you that 30% of the energy consumption will be in a couple of years data centers. So that's why I also say be ethical AI and be energy and planet aware as another
yeah,
value that we have. And less is more. So don't take all the data because you think it is. And you see a lot of organizations within the data landscape that are reviewing their subscriptions. And I'll come to your point, but reviewing their subscription because in the past they have put everything in the cloud and all the data there, and a lot is not used. So they're cleaning up their shit. Sorry, they're cleaning
no
things up
worries.
because it costs too much money. Like Snowflake, for example. I heard the couple of months, 2 months ago or something, they are still growing, but average subscriptions go down. And I was thinking, why is that? Well, that's because clients are thinking like revisiting the subscription. You think, what the hell? Right? We're storing all this thing and we're not all using it. So that goes down a little bit. But indeed, the three players are very powerful. The lock-in that they now are creating, especially Microsoft with Copilot and in your systems. Yeah, I dream of that if you would be a software supplier, right? Because, but it's definitely a concern because when you have it installed and you use it and you use Bart on Google or you use Copilot, yeah, it's definitely very beneficial. You have to, of course, adopt it and train people how to use it. And that's definitely a big deployment and action. But yeah, they will become more powerful. The good news is, of course, there are still three. And so the competition is huge. And what I'm very happy about with generative AI and if how it falls out in the future, I have ideas and we can talk about that as well. But of course, the open source movement in the LLMs and in training. However, and there it comes, where's the hardware to train those? So then we have an open source LLM of a Mistral and all,
Yeah.
and then try to train them. Then you're getting back most of the time to these three, and then it's this GPU hardware stuff, right? That you're dependent on them and on the pricing of them. Of course, that goes down on the LLM side, on the closed ones. So Google and Amazon is of course also really moving also in the open source that you can host it there. So that's a good thing. I don't know how far they go with Anthropic and stuff, but yeah, I think there are at least three players. But I agree with you that
So,
companies
so, so,
should definitely look very well on what they start implementing, which technology you're going to use, and how
so, so,
far they are hooked. Yeah,
so,
yeah,
so take one step back because we agree on this. This is actually an inherent risk for your business.
yeah,
So if you're in the boardroom and hopefully the CIO or the AI officer, chief AI officer, which I think companies, at least big companies, should starting to have. Um, how should they approach this? Because how do you take a decision, sort of agnostic of technology? Because if you strategize, I think it should be agnostic of technology. And then later on, you look at, okay, what is it that we actually need
right,
in order to succeed? Shouldn't we work or shouldn't we advise companies, okay, but you should actually have a technology independent model where we can exchange one tech stack for the other one without causing disruption in your company? Because there's this other thing that is sort of worrying and nobody knows where it's going is all these lawsuits that are pending, against DALL-E from the Getty Archive, New York Times against OpenAI, and there's a couple more. If you zoom out, I mean, Microsoft offers companies to pay for their legal fees if they get sued for copyright infringement. But that's only if you have the settings right. Yeah, nobody has the settings right.
right.
So you're not protected. Because you start playing with it, you change one thing and it's not according to what they want. So how do you approach that in a boardroom to de-risk this? Because taking a decision for one means you're actually taking a decision for the future. You're not working with the other ones, but whether the big ones or small ones doesn't matter.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you understand what I mean? It's really a long-term decision.
My experience within enterprises in general, I worked a lot with organizations that had this SAP ERP first. So that's already a big decision. And then on the office kind of thing, it might be Microsoft or Google, right?
Yeah.
So that will not change. What
But that's fine.
what I'm looking at a little bit, not on the strategic level, but my question, my answer to your question is more on a tactical, operational level. When organizations are starting with the three-letter acronym bullshits, but the large language models, generative AI, then I definitely work with them, and I follow that really, really very, very closely in the US with my team on where do the LLMs go, right? And there's a lot of communication about how good OpenAI 4.0 is and how Gemini is and all that sort of stuff.
Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Sales
But
speak.
let's first look at what do we really want to accomplish? Which content or intelligence, I always say, it's not an LLM, it's an intelligent content hub. We put intelligence in when you're going to in the generative AI, and you're going to create answers, you're going to create text, you're going to create, and what content, your own content, are you going to put in? And I definitely keep that totally separate from the LLM that we're fine tuning or training or that we eventually will have. The reason why is indeed putting your content, and Amazon is a big play, of course, to say, oh, your content is there and create an LLM for it. Yeah, bullshit. That's not going to work. But however, it's a nice proposition. But let's first have a look which content, clean up your stuff.
I mean, Bedrock. The Bedrock story from
right. We can
AWS.
validate it. This is the content that we really are going to use. I'm doing a project like this within farming to really make an intelligent content up around farming that you could say, hey, I'm going to grow onions. What do I need to do with clay ground and all that sort of stuff, right? So those are all growing manuals of potatoes, of tomatoes, and all that sort of stuff. Put that in. But the person, the company that does that in the agro advice has to first decide, what do we put in? What kind of knowledge and content and videos and images and text and that, I think, is more important and more difficult as a first step to do that. Now, that you can do technology agnostic. Now, this last step, and that's more difficult, is what type of questions do you want to ask? Because I have found out that everybody's saying, yeah, we need more information. Okay, now let's, and that's now called all prompt engineering. I understand how you do it. I can give some tips, but that's not for now. But the thing is, what do you really want to ask? How far do you? So I'm sitting with a client that attracts donors to donate to the Red Cross and all that sort of stuff, and they have piles of data. And what they want to get insight in is a lot, but to work with them first, what they really want to have of insights and what they want to do with it, that's the first step. And that will determine all the content. And I think that's where the value is when you start with this, but not the LLM itself. So you can split these actions, store it, all technology independent, but that's your foundation and the most critical piece. Does that make sense? Or
it makes perfect sense, and I'd like to add something to that. We've been working on a project as well. We found that while doing a POC of a proof of impact, or whatever POI. Well, in this case, the customer asked something, and he said it can be done. And we said, well, it can be done. So we actually built it, and it could be done. But we found out that if you put in information, let's say text, it's literally garbage in, garbage out. So we got text, and there was contradictory in two different documents. There was stuff that were contradictory. Try putting that into an LLM and get a proper answer. Well, we got two answers, and they were contradictory. So the first thing, you're actually right, is make sure you don't put garbage in. So whatever you put in, make sure it's properly written. People can understand it. There are no contradictory things in there. So anything that would confuse an LLM or a consumer, for that matter, or a user of the
Yeah,
data.
yeah, yeah.
And what we now see is that a lot of the documents, but also websites, are not properly written,
Right. Yeah. Not conversationally
poorly
written, I
written,
would say. Right. Yeah. It's not
poorly written, hard to understand. And if it's hard to understand for us humans, an LLM will have a hard time too getting out the right, what is it actually saying?
right.
And so, and some people call that hallucinating. I've seen that's actually, even if you limit the hallucinating, it can still come up with bad stuff because of the content in there that is really, well, not up to par in
Right.
terms of quality standards. And I think that's the other thing. It's going to ask a lot of, communication departments, which are mainly not involved in these kind of things, but whatever content they produce, it needs to be a different level.
Yeah. 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 And that's why I use even, it's pretty staggering, but it's really fun. I use an LLM to make some content conversational to then put it in the LLM.
Yeah,
Because
that's crazy.
and then they say, yeah, it's all artificial intelligence, but then it at least becomes more conversational so that when you ask questions, it becomes better. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
But then you still need the human in the loop to check whatever comes out of the LLM that it still makes sense.
Of course, because yesterday I heard the podcast, as we both love podcast, about at least 20% of the answers are not correct. And I don't want to call it hallucinations because that's like some odd term, but it's just not correct. How much is it with
Shitty
feelings?
prompting.
Sorry?
Shitty prompting.
Yeah, well, often that's the case, but also, of course, when you submit it twice, you get different answers sometimes. So, of course, everybody is challenging now the systems of what it can do, what it cannot do, and to stay on par. But
That's the other problem with LLMs, the way people are using it now. If you're in a company and you prompt, the model develops. If you use the API,
yeah, yeah,
it's X today and it's X plus X amount of data tomorrow, and of course training. And what happens is, particularly, is that you put something in and you get an answer today. You put in the same prompt tomorrow or in a week, and you get a different nuance, different answer or different nuance in the answer. And you're like, how's that possible? I asked the same question.
right,
That's because the model changes. And I think that's another risk for companies that, nobody knows exactly how it's changing. It's a black box. So, and I think that's one of the things with the European AI Act, which you must be aware of as well, which is
right,
happening. Actually, in Belgium, you're really close to it, to Brussels. You can't do that anymore. If it's a black box, you
yeah,
need to do something differently. And I think a lot of companies are going to be impacted by this,
right.
and not, well, it's going to cost them money and time. And how do you view that? Because a lot of the solutions that are out there now are not up to par with the European AI Act. Meaning, if you put that over it and you check it, it's okay. We can't use it. We can't use it in this way. How do you view that, and in terms of implementation and consequences for companies on the strategic level?
Well, from a machine learning perspective for predictions, that's of course a little bit easier to indicate them all and stuff. So I'll leave that out of the equation and more focus on
You
the
just
LLMs.
state the algorithm and you say, okay, this is
The
what it does.
LLMs and stuff. So
Yeah.
of course, what of course brings me back to, of course, the steps we take, the small steps. How much is the impact and how complex is it? You can with an health oriented company I'm working with. To immediately make it available for answering the parents' questions in the first phase, I said that's definitely a no-go. Very simple. I'm not going to do it. Right? That's not good. A regular conversational AI platform with standard FAQ, you get 100% you the answer that you put in, and we can start with that. But like this conversational, empathetic, and context-driven LLM, it works, right? We did a proof of impact. It works, and often, but we didn't test it thoroughly to always get the same answer. That's the right answer. So what do? We first start internally. In detail, okay, do we need to document that as well with the EU? I'm still getting up to speed on this and trying, but nevertheless, I also want to help clients making a step forward. But in this conversational AI, first internally, have a look, what does it say, adjust it, and that we're then confident in launching it outside. I'm, of course, working a lot, and a colleague of mine said as well, with professionals where we use it internally, right? Where I can say, guys, you're typing this in, you're getting an answer, be aware 20% of the time it's BS. Although we are saying that the temperature, as we call it, or that it shouldn't be creative, it should base it on the exact stuff. But yeah, I always teach it in the inspiration session as well. Do you know what ChatGPT is about?
So you haven't figured out how to not make it hallucinate. We figured it out, by the way.
Is trying to, the whole world is doing that. You even have platforms that promise a 20% hallucination reduction. But now you can imagine you have 20% of the time that it's giving the wrong answer, and they can reduce it by 20%. So you're still
That's interesting. In one of the startups I'm working, we are working, we actually, it looks like we've solved this.
Ah, cool.
And that when, it either has an answer or it hasn't. And we haven't had any hallucination,
right,
or wrong answers. We just, as I said, what happened was, garbage in, garbage out. So if there's texts in there that are poorly written or contradictory stuff, then you get into trouble.
Right.
But we can't control that. What we build
build
around it, it cannot. It just doesn't hallucinate. Right. We were surprised that we achieved that. We tried to, but you never know if you really. So far, we couldn't break it.
That's cool. Yeah, it would be interesting to hear.
We'll do that outside the call. It's not for the call, but I'd love to tell you about it. But the thing is that you mentioned this as a risk, and it's so important that these risks and those are inherent risks, and there's a couple more, are also in the boardroom on the table.
Oh,
because,
yeah, sure.
Of course, because they're also liable as a executive.
Not even the risk, right? I always say as a value, ethical AI, right? So and from a high.
So, what do you consider ethical AI? What is, in your opinion, ethical?
Well, I think it's definitely critical that when you're going to, let me go one step back, which I want to share.
Sure.
No data, no AI, right? So
unfortunately,
from data, I always say information, then we clean stuff up, and that's just a data play. But when we create from data insights, which is a next maturity, and I can share that with you as well in a PDF, perhaps you want to share it. But then you create the information, you make insights. And I say, okay, which technology are we using there? Well, generative AI is very great. Hey, you can ask questions and you get insights. Of course, it's more critical to really understand what do you want to get out of the, what kind of insights do you want to have? And then indeed, how do you ask it? And people and organizations can start there. Of course, first basis that they really can do that.
That's a risk.
Talk to their data. Well, not talk to the data. I say talk to your information, because you have to clean it up. Data is all sorts of stuff. Now, the next big thing, and I'll come to the ethical part, right? The next thing is that you're going into predictions. So then you're going more from a really analytical way of decision making with insights, which is better than the data, because then you're very reactive. You're more going to be in the insights and more analytical decision making. Now, when you go to predictions, which another play comes in, everybody thinks generative AI does that. No way, right? It can do it a little bit. I played with it, and it does it pretty well, but not really like machine learning does with the models. But that's also pretty.
You need a combination of the different technologies.
So, very simple terms, I hope for the listeners. But then you go into predictions, and then you do machine learning. Now, what we are doing is we're creating these predictions and then dump that again in an LLM as insights, and then you can ask questions about it, which is very cool. Of course, I'm more thinking I want to learn about these, bad answers. Now, the next level, I think, of maturity with your data and all your stuff is that you put in the recommendations, that you know it up front. Like, you can say, like, what is the LTV of this customer? Very nice, is an insight. What do you predict when somebody cancels? That's a prediction. I'm also working in this donor thing and who donates and stuff. Now, a recommendation would be, hey, Doron is going to cancel next week. Call him up.
Based on streams of data.
Right. That's a recommendation. So on this level, And that's, I always use that also within the framework and say, okay, what are we creating? Let's first create insights, because prediction is pretty scary. Of course, can add value, the future. Now, linked to ethical AI, because that's what I'm doing with clients, then generative AI, yeah, what with the insights, what are you going to do? And we need to know, and that's why I always ask, what do you want with it? And then the ethical part comes in, right? If you're going to decide, which I'm working on now, having a resume and having a job description and have a competence library and match those, and there comes an advice, and then you ask generative AI and it works, right? It damn well works. From 0 to 10, would you hire this person for this job? Shoot, it's impressive. With these
Yeah,
three, a resume, a competence library, and a job
this
description.
description.
It's impressive what it comes out of. This person are on this communication, so it's good to go. But are you going to also decide from the 0 to 10? Are you going to base your decision on that? And then ethical AI comes in, right? Because from 0 to 10, how would you, as a, well, I don't know how it states that, right? I'm looking at it, and
See,
then again,
but here's the thing. This is an interesting thought. And I've heard this before. Someone talked about this. But if you have a job description and you
yeah,
ask AI, you already have AI to do that for you, to write your resume
yeah,
in such a way that it matches the job description or rewrite it. And then you take it through the AI. You sort of adapt a bit so you can't figure out it's made by AI. And you have also software for that. And then the AI says, oh, this is the perfect candidate. Um, um, aren't we? No, it's again suggestive, but it looks like we're at risk of AI managing AI or influencing AI. Like you get a whole chain of AI. Here's a person, at the end there's a person, but I use AI to manipulate my CV using the job description you gave me, understanding probably what kind of competence database or library should be next to it. You can ask an AI to generate that, what makes sense to put next to that job description. And then the AI on the other end says, "Oh, this CV is a good match because blah 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 blah." Um, so, aren't we at risk that the people who are AI savvy and understand how to basically fuck the system
well, and
are
it's my
going to fuck the
challenge, but
system?
yeah,
Because at some point, it's so hard to detect what's AI, what's not. I had a talk to a lady. We'll record a podcast thing the end of February. She's an academic, but she worked with a company on making software technology to detect AI in video recordings and
right, yeah,
speech
yeah,
in
yeah.
order to for
Something,
people making phone calls or getting phone calls or
yeah,
like identity theft to detect that for banks and insurance companies, that kind of stuff, because the risk is on them. And then to protect consumers, because also that's part of the problem. Consumers need to be protected. That's what the AI Act is about. So that kind of AI, at some point, if you take the human out of the loop, the AI does not look at human connection.
well, you bring up a good point, but that's why I come back. So you're triggering me very funny. I think coming back strategically, I think the value that I have on this, because you asked me, that's how we came to it. What's ethical AI to you? It's IA instead of AI, right? So it's
Yeah,
intelligent augment. And you said you say it very nicely, human in the loop. So, but going back to your example, is AI going to take over? I have no problem when a candidate submits their letter and their resume to me for the jobs that I have open, so people have a look. But to that it's created with AI, because I know firsthand creating a good letter, creating a good
yeah,
resume
it's hard. It's hard.
with AI is sometimes, especially a resume, is more work than do it yourself, not the letter, right? Because you can say, this is the job description, this is my resume, write the letter. However, I have found out also with this proof of impact of this competency library, this job description, and this resume, creating a, sorry for saying, but creating a prompt, I hate that term, but creating a prompt, I was working on this and fine tuning it for 3/4 of an hour to really find out if I could get something out of it. I have developed that skill. So I would advise everybody to start there and really look at the prompt and stuff. But that was a lot of work. And then I thought, okay, was it better to spend the 3/4 of an hour analyzing it myself? I thought, no, because the next resume is, of course, spot on, right?
But Hans, then in the job description, you should write, and I'm serious about this. You should write, we only accept resumes and letters that are actually made with AI. Oh, you just turn the game around, and then
fun, fun fact,
because then it's people who don't do it. It's like, okay, because you're not AI savvy, we can't work with you.
Yeah.
And people who understand how to get something good out of it, and then you can still talk to everybody. Look at people.
Yeah, great. I'm going to add that one to the list. Yeah.
Oh, let me know how that works out. I'm really curious.
Send your letter created by AI. Yeah.
Fun. And your CV.
No, but I think it's not bad because
you can interview them on the prompt they used.
Yeah. But seriously, when you're doing it and ask it in general, the structure of the letter is also, there's no introduction, there's no how you. So I think that's not going to work. People that think, really, the mediocre people that think, oh, I prompt it, I do nothing special, I get some text and I send it over,
copy paste,
review it, right? Those people are going to fail, right? And we're going to get an overloading content and videos and images, but we will definitely see everywhere what we really like and what we don't like, and what really is seriously where there was not effort in and where there was serious effort in. I analyze organizations that I visit with AI, and that works excellent, but I read it very thoroughly, what all comes out of it. What are the challenges of this company? Who are the competitors? It's all automatically generated by AI before I visit the customer. It reads it out loud to me in the car, but I spent 3/4 of an hour or half an hour listening to it. Before I looked on the website, I was in the car, I couldn't do anything. I listened to other podcasts. Now I'm prepared. I know what the company is about. Is that bad? No, AI is my companion.
No.
It helps me, right?
Listen, I'm pro AI, and I think any job we can make more fun or easier by using AI, and putting it somewhere in between, that is perfectly fine. What I don't like, and you're hiring people, okay? Let's talk a little bit about hiring people, the next generation, education, and mentality, because what I
those are
see
a lot
is
of topics
that
together now, right? You
sorry.
understand? Those are a lot of topics together.
No, well, actually, I'm gonna compress them, because what you see is there's a whole generation that it communicates via text. They don't know how to talk to each other anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And
as well.
Yeah, and if you look at that, so that's a social skill. And there's literally a lack of social skills. That is one.
That's what we think, right?
Well, try to sometimes, not everybody, but youngsters on the phone they have like phone phobia or something. I don't know what it is, but try to talk to someone. It's easier to. That's why I sometimes I'd rather use a chatbot, because talking to someone, half the time they don't understand you. Yeah. But that's another point. If you then look at education, or the Dutch education system, and maybe in Belgium it's the same, but the European education system, we're lacking behind, because we're teaching them a lot of stuff, theoretical stuff, or just information. Where if you look at if you use AI in a proper way, you could make, first of all, the learning much more fun and much more natural at the level you're at. So it's adapted to you. And maybe you should learn the stuff that actually are useful skills, or skills for your brain, and not so much learning by heart which war happened. I mean, history is really important. I'll be the first one to say, but there's different ways of doing that.
Right.
But why would I have to know that in which year Columbus discovered the USA?
Yep.
Is it relevant? I can look it up. I don't know how many times in your life you had to discuss the discovery of the USA. Actually, it wasn't the USA at the time, but Not very often, probably.
Right. Well,
So,
yeah.
so hold on. And then if you go to, I don't know how it's in Belgium, but in Holland, if the kids come from high school, their language skills are lousy, their reading skills are lousy, and the problem is in math especially in the highest level, they put every test, it's text based. So if you can't properly read, you can't do math, which is really weird. Um, but they can read short messages on WhatsApp or text or whatever. Um, and then you go to university or applied sciences, and what you see is they teach stuff, but it's also backward because the innovation goes much faster. So what should we change? And the teachers are also, they're not very knowledgeable about this stuff we're talking about. So what should we change? No, sorry. Let's one say you're hiring people. What do you see in terms of their skills, socially one, but technically? Do you hire people with a high diploma, or do you hire people with skills?
I'm interested in getting in contact with people that are eager to learn from a technology standpoint and from the organization or the projects that we do. I think that's the most important skill for me to have, that they understand why we do it, what is the eventual outcome.
Okay.
Because I see too many data engineers that look at the data and don't understand it, and that will slow stuff
I heard the
significantly.
CEO of a data science company tell me it's like, I have great people employed. They're brilliant. They just can't talk to customers. They have no idea how to do that or to understand their business issue and how to match the data with their business issue. I need people in between. I'm like, oh, that's
But
crazy.
that's a little bit difficult for me to work with, as I'm a performance-based company. I also like to work performance-based, so that's why we really pick we want to see the impact. So when I talk about a donor, and then the story of a company that I work with, donor lifetime value, then a data engineer needs to know what lifetime value is. The good thing is, I think, and that's where this comes in, if the person is very eager, they would go to ChatGPT and ask it, tell me this and this and this, do this and this and this, and explain it to me, and I don't have to do it. Not that I don't want to, but I always say I'm more on a strategic, tactical level, and you are, which with the people I work now, you need to translate it from tactical to operational. But don't stay at the operational, and let AI help you, right, that we really bridge the gap, because there are many implementations and projects where we have this big impact and stuff, and that from an operational, and we have a disconnect in between. Now AI can perfectly, and in education that's something different. I think that needs to become more assignment based, and getting more contact
More
and
skills.
fun. And some education is already there because people cannot learn, and they have a short attention span. So I think it's already there. It's wide in the open how to do that. But
Yeah.
let's not do that for now. Also, lack of time. But I think from that perspective, regarding your question, who do you want to talk to? Of course, good data engineers, but they really need to have the acumen and the drive to understand it, and to really understand the business, because there are a lot of technical folks, and I work with many of them worldwide, also now over the freelance networks worldwide, not in the Netherlands, but the Upworks of this kind, and great
The
fun
Fivers.
projects, even continuous. Fiverr is a little bit lower end, but Upwork is a little bit higher. But
Okay.
that works great. But then I'm already canceling things when they don't ask any questions and they already start doing machine learning. And I think, okay, that's not going to work, right? Because you don't know what you want to accomplish. So I think that's where I find it very important. And there are a lot of great technical people that now graduate from the AI data science, which we work with in Breda as well. Excellent, excellent, right? But you have to educate them further on the business side of things. But good thing is, they have a companion that can help out if they want to, right? If they are eager to do so. Yeah.
But in your selection process, you look further for social skills and are they sort of, can they learn the part they didn't learn in school?
Well, the thing is, I now I have a job opening for an AI business consultant role, which is a little bit new. So to be in the middle, right, talking to the clients, and I asked for them to take a case. I instructed them, make a video, and present the case. But related to that, that was a little bit too much of an effort for the current. So they send a lot of big letters and resumes.
But no
That
video.
can do, but creating a short video and presenting yourself, hey, I'm this, and I'm talking about this company. This is the that's that. Unfortunately, but nevertheless, I have to find out as well with the people that I have now. But that's a different generation. But that's why I like it so much. I really think it's really fun. Yeah. Especially my kids are at that age, and
Yeah, and I think we're in an amazing place because we have kids that are growing up with tech, and it's
right,
sort of
yeah.
ingrained in their DNA,
Yeah,
and
their
and
Snapchat AI companion,
it's, it's
which is
crazy.
scary, but I definitely had a look at as well, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're from at an age where we understand how businesses work, and we're sort of in the middle of this transformation. I think it's an amazing time
Yeah.
to be working because there's no day the same or no problem the same, and solutions keep developing. So
No, but it's a
having
great, yeah, it's definitely helping customers out, creating an AI game plan. It's with a standard framework, we keep each other honest. That definitely works. And I created already many of them the last couple of times, and we're also implementing those. Of course, impact driven, ethical AI, critical, small steps. But yeah,
small results and leading
yeah,
to eventually big results.
and sometimes people say, "Yeah, you have to kill a deal over 100 days." Start. I said, "No way. Let's yeah, that small steps is fine, right? Just start with that and look at the impact, measure very well. I think that's critical, especially now. Yeah, otherwise it's going to be a failure.
Yeah, but also you need to be able to, because that's the other thing. You need to be able to be accountable for the huge investments that need to be made, and the commitment for a couple of years you're asking, because if you, as a company, if you make the investment in starting with AI and doing things, developing a team, because that's the one thing we didn't talk about. Um, you also need to build, if a company starts implementing, you need to build a team around that, and
Yep.
and build the capability within your company, because I think it's a bad thing as a company. You're always dependent on external parties to handle it. So as
Oh, yeah.
external parties, we can help getting started, getting it implemented,
Yeah.
train the staff, but eventually they should be able to run it themselves.
Yeah. An external party who's monitoring the conversation and adjusting it, that's not a subject matter expert. So they should do that. Yeah.
No, no,
It
no.
should be somebody else who was answering the phone or answering the emails, then monitoring those and do that. And that's a job change. However, that's a must. Yeah. So I always indicate in the projects effort from our side. That's your contribution. However, we expect the effort on your side being this much. Some people don't do that. That's fine. But I definitely want to say, hey, these are the people that we need, and the time that they have to put in, because otherwise it's not going to work. But that's with a lot of projects and change and transformational projects. But
So
yeah, critical.
so to wrap this up, if you could give one, no, the most important strategic advice to a boardroom, concerning, okay, we have nothing now, or we're at the crossroads of deciding what to do, how to start, and forget all the, well, don't forget the game plans, but what decision or what decision making should be taking place, and how do you talk to your staff? Because let's say the board doesn't know, how do you know which staff to involve or not to involve, to ask for advice? Because if you ask your accountant, that's also, a lot of them do that. It's also not a good idea. They don't know much either, to be honest. So how should if you're an executive, you're looking ahead, it's like, guys, we need to start doing something. How? What's the first most important step to take?
Well, a great question. I'll try to keep it short, which is sometimes difficult for me as I'm too
Well,
enthusiastic. The thing is, taking the operating model where everybody is involved, from, for example, sales, R&D, marketing, support, service, finance, IT, taking them out of their work and creating in a room a game plan that is driven by the pains and gains, so by business impact, helps enormously getting already the silos taking down. I did a lot of product development workshops on it to optimize product development following a stage gate methodology. That's a whole different methodology. But then everybody's in the room, and finally everybody was talking to each other. Yeah, you need this, and I need this, and then. So getting those people together, not with an AI technology focus, and sure, do some inspiration to start with, and then determine together, and not by IT setting up something and saying we have a platform and go and use it. That's not,
Exactly.
sorry, but that's not going to use. I'm not for that. But doing that first, I think, and of course, it's easier said than done. It's with every technology project, but even more important with this. And it stays the same without any technology. And with AI, the same thing. Then, of course, have a good agency that knows their stuff and knows about AI, what you can do, what you cannot do, and then plot it. But make it, I always say when I start with the AI experience, now we forget, well, we know what we can do with AI, but this exercise now, filling out the canvas, the business impact canvas, what can we do? What's the pain? What's the gain? What's the impact? Forget the technology. Huh? And that is, I think, critical as a first step in your AI game plan. If you don't do that, you dive into technology too quickly, and it's going to be a failure.
And it's going to cost you a lot of money, and
Yeah.
maybe even you get in trouble with the European government for not complying with the AI Act.
Yeah, as
European
well.
AI,
Yeah. You're starting
or
to.
GDPR even.
Yeah.
This canvas, is this something you can share with the
Yeah,
community?
sure. Yeah, I can make.
Okay, so
PDF.
we'll put it in Google Drive where people can download it. Put a link in the
Yeah.
in the post so that people can use it. Well, Hans,
Great.
thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. I think
Likewise.
we sort of we're helping people making that first step. And
I hope it can benefit them, and great challenging questions, which I always like with the podcast. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
well,
Yeah.
you're making it easy for me.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Thank
Cool.
you very much, and see you next time.
Thanks.